The meeting will come to order, please. Would you stand for the flag salute? Pledge allegiance to the flag
United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Sue, would you read the certification, please?
Certifies that on March 17th, 2013, a notice of this meeting was published in the press. It was also posted on the district website, in the administration office, the Eugene H. High School, and the Ross School.
Thank you. Would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Bloomberg,
I'm here.
Mr. Sless,
Present.
Mrs. Canuso,
Here.
Mayor Becker.
Here. We all have before us for approval, the minutes of our last Board of School Estimates meeting on March 28, 2012. Are there any additions or corrections? Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
Commissioner Bloomberg,
Yes.
Mr. Sless,
Yes.
Mrs. Canuso,
Yes.
Mayor Becker.
Yes. We'll now have a public hearing on the proposed budget for the school year of 2013-2014. Call on Dr. DeFranco. But before I go, Commissioner Taube is being honored today, had to leave. She would ask me to read this, and I will. I regret not being able to attend the Board of School Estimates meeting today. I had a previously scheduled important event to attend, and this Board of School Estimate meeting could not be changed due to other scheduling conflicts. I thank Dr. DeFranco, Susan Pelea, J.B. Sless, and Kirsten Canuso for their time and efforts preparing the school budget. After reviewing the budget and speaking with Susan Pelea about a couple items for which I had questions, I approved the 2013-2000 budget, and I'm grateful for the savings of $470,000 to our taxpayers. And at this point, Dr. DeFranco, do you have a presentation for us?
Yes, I just want to mention a few highlights that as we have discussion today regarding our budget. And I think one of the most important things to start off with is that it was developed putting the student first. For the 2013-14 year, our students will be provided with the same level of quality instructional support as they are having in the current year. There's going to be a continued support for school safety efforts in the district. There's also a focus on using a state-approved evaluation system for teachers as well as our principals, and this is a statewide initiative. There's continued support for providing students with state-of-the-art technology to support instructional delivery, ongoing professional development for our teachers and staff. You will see that there's continued efforts to work closely with the Margate Library to expand support for students as well as services. There's a continued focus on using benchmark assessments to better support instructional delivery. And lastly, we are going to maximize our use of instructors and carefully place them in areas of their expertise. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Franco. Mr. Sless, would you like to comment at this time, or can we have this?
Sure, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Just briefly, at our March regular Board of Education meeting, Dr. DeFranco and Ms. Pelea, of course, presented the budget that was unanimously approved by the Margate City Board of Education. The board unanimously supported that budget, and of course, it's our intention today to ask the support of the other members of the Board of School Estimates to support our budget as well. As Commissioner Taube said in her letter read by the mayor, the budget is down significantly, and that is something that we were able to do without decreasing any instructional support for our students, deferring to Dr. DeFranco and all the substance that was stated. But just briefly, if anyone would take a look at what was accomplished at the schools over the past year, they would be extremely satisfied with what happened in the last year, and we look forward to accomplishing even more next year. Some of the significant projects that were accomplished over the years, such as our wireless district network, our increased security, our instructional software. We had some construction issues, removing some asbestos tiles from the Thai school, replacing a gym floor, and we have set aside adequate funds for our security plan for 2013-2014. Pleased to share with everyone, if you didn't already know, that the damage to the schools from the storm in the fall was insured, and all that money was received, so we didn't incur any unnecessary expenses with any repairs as a result of our storm damage. I was very satisfied with the superintendent and our facilities folks and everyone at the district with the school's readiness and use after the hurricane in the fall. As everyone may recall, our Ross School board office was used as a center for emergency services when the police department and other agencies were suffering damage, and the city was able to go right in there and use that facility. We've been able to formally transfer this property, Union Avenue School, back over to the city, and we look forward to continued use by the city for this property. During the year, the district continues to cooperate with the Margate Recreational Department. If anyone has looked at any of the handouts from the rec department, whether it was the most recent one is the spring or the fall one, there's dozens. There's 30-plus programs where the facilities are used in agreement with the rec department, from our preschoolers through our seniors, and it serves the entire population, and it works seamless, and we're very proud of that. We entered last year. We were in some contract negotiations that were all resolved with the guidance of Ms. Pillay and Dr. DeFranco. The board was able to, what we would submit was a very fiscally prudent as well as satisfactory agreement with everybody. The superintendent's salary, of course, was reduced significantly. That was by state action, but did not present a problem for our superintendent, of course. Our administrators and principals' 3-year contracts were 0%, 2%, and 2%, and our teachers' contracts were, of course, 2.49% for the 3 years of their existing contract. And by way of other note, in regards to, we were involved in some significant legal matters over the last number of years, matters that started way back in 2006, 2007. Most of them have been resolved. That was our gym floor, our maintenance issue. There were some domicile legal actions and some other legal actions. They primarily have been resolved, and our legal fees have been reduced significantly by tens of thousands of dollars as a result of resolving this litigation. And other than that, I would just commend Dr. DeFranco and Ms. Pillay on an excellent budget, and I ask the support of Commissioner Blumberg and Mayor Becker.
Thank you, J.B. I have a couple questions. I'd like to go through them. We could be brief if you like. Whoever is the appropriate person can answer this. First question is about enrollment. I see enrollment is down 8, or I assume that we have a commitment from you people to keep a strict look at the enrollment, and at some point as that enrollment gets down, I assume you have plans for the future.
I could talk a little bit about that. We're carefully watching that enrollment. There are some, we had a study that was completed by Dr. Paniciero when we were looking at doing our 5-year facilities plan, and that was just recently, last year. And at that time, he saw, that the enrollment was likely to have a little bit of times where it went up, it went down. It would never have the peaks that it had years ago. But one thing, when they did the enrollment study, they never thought we were going to be having Hurricane Sandy. And so we're watching closely what will happen with the elevations, whether that will have people move out, what that actually will do to our enrollment. But in answer to your question, Mayor, as we watch this. That was why one of the things that I have on our list here is to maximize the use of our instructors while carefully looking at their areas of expertise. And as that enrollment changes, we will need to look at properly staffing to meet the needs and quality of our students while not having excess.
And if I may, Dr. DeFranco, Mr. Mayor, it's specifically, it was at our March 14th meeting in 2012 is when we had the long-term facilities capital project plan update. It was completed March 12th, 2012, obviously pre-Hurricane Sandy, and that was on our agenda March 14th, 2012, where they showed the long-term use of the facilities, what the key numbers would be regarding enrollment to actually consider closing a second facility. Right now at 473 students, we still are in far excess of that number. According to the plan that we had done, the key number was 300 students. So when you start getting in the range of 300 students is when you would consider having the two facilities that we have now, when you would want to start considering additional expenses to consolidate from two to the one building. Right now, 473. We are projected less for next year. We're projected at 400 for next year, but kindergarten, historically, registration increases over the summer, so we're a little premature on that. But in any event, still not at 300, but as the Dr. DeFranco said, still keeping an eye on things. Another enrollment figure worth sharing is trending at the high schools. As everyone's familiar with the school choice program in the state of New Jersey now, it's interesting to note that school choice is definitely affecting the choice of high schools that our Margate students attend as ninth graders, but specifically in reference to Atlantic City High School, this year we have more students at Atlantic City High School and ACIT combined than we've had since 2009. We have 127 students at those two facilities. That's up from 114 in 2012 and 119 in 2011 and 126 in 2010. When you look where our students attend high school, the clear number is, you'll notice back in 2011, Holy Spirit High School had 64 Margate students, and in 2012, 13, they have 20. So, so that high school may have less Margate students. Obviously, they do, 44 less in the last 2 years. But Atlantic City High School and ACIT are up, but the majority of those, of course, are Atlantic City High School, and those numbers, I believe, specifically are... Susan has that, but I think it's 122 at Atlantic City and 5 at ACIT.
Isn't that attributed to the fact that we had an extraordinarily large 8th grade class last year, the biggest in 10 years, I think?
The 8th grade class, yeah, was
last year.
I can't say it was the biggest in 10 years, but last year's was large.
I'm pretty sure it was
Right.
the biggest in 10 years.
And it's the biggest...
Last year's class.
And it's bigger than the next 3 or 4 coming, too.
Correct.
12-13, we had 123 students in Atlantic City, whereas in 11-12, we had 115 students.
Right.
Next year, I anticipate 122 students. So that 8th grade class will be moving through there for 4 years.
Right.
Correct.
And the bottom line is that the district's costs are based on how many kids, or this came up in the fall, and I want everybody clear, it's not how many kids went to choice schools, it's how many kids we have to pay for at the tuition schools, and that those numbers are up or
Those numbers are
correct? Okay.
Yes.
Steady, and they're up.
That was my next question.
They're steady. In fact, they're up. And just by way of sharing costs, if you have a special education student, which we have a number of at the Atlantic City High School, it's $31,932 per special education student we pay in our budget to the Atlantic City School District, and we pay $19,800 for our regular students.
Okay. Could someone tell me the average class size for our kids? Do we have that information?
For the current year, I can kind of break down. In taking a look at our average class size, we're looking at somewhere about 17, 18 students in a class.
That's the upcoming years? Dr.
No,
DeFranco?
that's for the current.
Current. How about for next year?
For next year, we have not broke that down, but I would say for next year, the average class size would be somewhere ranging about 19-20.
Summer school, are we scheduled to have summer school?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. Mari, do you have any questions?
Yeah, and I do, and I just wanted to clarify one thing for the public. I believe the number of students that were accepted to Ocean City High School next year is in the range of 18.
That's correct.
And just so the public understands, and correct me, Susan, if I'm wrong, that this is a gigantic windfall for the taxpayers of Margate City right now until the state figures out otherwise, in that we don't pay. The taxpayers do not pay for these kids to go to Ocean City. Under that choice program, the state pays. Now, we're not clipped aid, and Mike brought this to the public's attention, because we don't get a whole lot of aid. So other students, other districts that send kids to choice schools lose aid in proportion to the number of kids that they send. We don't, because we don't get that aid. They can't take away from us what they don't give. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That's correct.
Okay, so that's just, these choice programs, and I think Mainland is now opening up, are really good for the taxpayers of Margate. Plus, they give the Margate parents a choice, exactly that. And I believe I benefit. My kids go to Ocean City High School in that choice program. And that is not a knock on Atlantic City High School. It's just a choice that we have that we never had before. So that's good for Margate, I think. My question is, in this budget that we're looking at, are there any teacher cuts? Will any teachers be losing their jobs?
As we have it right now, when you say teachers losing the jobs,
And are there any teacher cuts? When we approve this budget,
Yes.
are we approving the current teachers that we have now?
there are no cuts, meaning there's teachers, if they're full-time, there may be some part-time, but there's no one losing their job.
Explain to me what that means. If I'm a full-time teacher now,
Yes.
I might not be a full-time teacher next year?
There's a possibility, yes.
And how many situations does that... Because obviously, the budget accounts for some portion of teacher salaries. So if a teacher is full-time this year, and we approve the budget, are
Yes.
we not approving a full-time salary for next year?
For some, yes.
How many?
We are still looking at those numbers, some of it's...
Then how can I approve this?
Some of it's depending on kindergarten, Mr. Commissioner. We have sent out letters.
How many kindergarten teachers do we have now?
We have 3, and we have 25 students right now that have only enrolled in kindergarten. We've made an extra effort this year. We've put two letters in the current. We've been running a whole script on Channel 2. We have contacted multiple times all the preschool programs, sent flyers and letters to all the parents asking, please register your child, so that way we have an idea. At the current time, with all our outreach, and we've increased our outreach efforts this year.
I understand that, and that's great. I think that's great. How much money are we talking about that's not in the budget for these kindergarten teachers?
Right now, we have it with all 3.
Are in. So they're all, the salaries for 3 is in the
Yes.
budget that we're going to approve. That's the only question I have, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any aid cuts in this budget? Right now, how many aides do we have?
Right now, that's going to be dependent after the IEPs are done, and it's driven by students.
How many aides do we have on the payroll now?
Approximately about 11.
11 aides. And so in this budget that we're going to approve, do we have money for 11 aides?
No.
How much money is in here for
Right now,
aides?
we have about 1.5 based on IEPs and recommendations from the Child Study Team, and taking a look at the children that are leaving next year. That's the children leaving 8th grade that maybe had a one-on-one aid. Aides a lot of students are assigned an aid based on their needs.
Right.
And we have been informed that we may, it's not confirmed because IEPs are not completed and there's new students moving in. So we have not tested all the new
So then,
kindergarten.
in that regard, we would be remiss not to have money in the budget for the current level of aides. Is that correct?
Based on the Child Study Team recommendation right now, they've asked what they need
So-
is probably 1.5 less than what we have
So the
now.
child study team came to you and said, hey, we don't need this money anymore, so you can take out 1.5 aides.
The Child
Is that how that
Study
went
Team,
down?
the Child Study Team meets with the parents. They meet with the parents.
Okay.
And they take a look at what that child needs. The Director of Special Education then meets with the Child Study Team to make a recommendation to me.
And then they came to you and said, hey, we don't think we need 11, we're only going to need 9.5 next year.
That we may.
That's what they said, that we
Yes,
may?
yes.
Well, what if they need 11?
If they end up needing 11, we will provide 11.
And the money will come from where? Because if it's not in here now, where then, Susan, do you get the money? Is there a magic pot?
No, there's not a magic box, but it might be something that we may have to put off doing until next year, that we planned on doing something, usually a
Okay, but
10th
right
grade,
now,
some
we're
kind of-
committed to 9.5 aides.
Right.
Okay. Are there any program cuts in this budget?
No.
So all the programs that we have now, we're going to have next year?
Yes, and all the instructional time that we have now, and that was one of my first comments, for students will remain the same.
Okay. Are there any added programs?
No,
No added programs?
no, not at this time.
Does that concern you? Does that
there's no
concern
added program?
JB? Does that
Added
concern
programs?
you? That we don't have any nothing new, we have no added
It's
programs?
interesting, well, it's an interesting point, because it's interesting to me, it's something that we talk about in our meetings all the time. When you look at what we have, we basically have every program that's essential, and then some. Let's just take extracurricular and sporting and providing buses to the events, which many districts have cut over the years. We have all that stuff in place, it's all remaining in
So the
place.
school board is satisfied with the programs that we have, that we are, in fact, the best of the best, and we can be no better?
Can I make a
Well,
suggestion?
we can always be better, and I know, and the principals and the superintendent talk about that month in and month out. But I mean, our CUSAC scores, which was the rating of the district, were top of the top in every category, and our New Jersey ASK tests
I don't
were
mean...
above and beyond.
And I hear you, and I...
Nearly every category.
Listen, I think, and I say this every year when I go to, when I speak at graduation, I think our kids are the best prepared of any kids anywhere, and that we are, in fact, the best of the best. But I will go back and to 3 years ago when we cut the Mandarin Chinese program, and I to this day, my kids regret it, and I regret it, that there was a great program that we had that we couldn't figure out a way to fund. And so when I say, are we looking at adding programs, I seriously think that if and when we approve this budget, which, more or less is the same, the same as it was last year, that we should be look to adding programs.
Well, we did add a lot last year. We
Yes.
added an entire enrichment program. It didn't have Chinese, but it had French, for example. Dr. DeFranco could opine to that more in detail. What we didn't do this year is we had $470,000 that we reduced our budget for primarily capital expenditures last year, the wireless network, the facilities improvements, the things that I mentioned earlier. I don't think you want me to go back into that. But the enrichment and all the additions into the curriculum and the programs that were put in last year still remain this year. So we're not seeking to add more additional programs to raise our budget. In fact, we're able to maintain a budget that's very efficient. but it doesn't cut any instructional time, it doesn't cut any programs, and the enrichment strategies and enrichment programs are in place.
And can I mention one other thing? We're sending out a survey to all the students on Tuesday. All students in the entire school will be taking a student climate and interest survey. We have there's a group of teachers that met with me. We developed this survey, and we are going to find out, are there areas, is there a math club or other items, foreign language clubs, that the students might be interested that we haven't thought about for extracurricular activities. We want that to emerge based on the students' interests, so that hopefully they will attend, and it's a bottoms-up type of program.
And also, just two other things worth note. One is other districts are cutting large programs like Spanish. There was heavy debate amongst the board about, the future of our Spanish program. It was clear that the board was not interested in reducing instructional time or cutting the Spanish program. And just like you have children at Ocean City High School, I have a child at Atlantic City High School. And when she was able to enroll as a freshman in the honor Spanish, or the Spanish for people that have taken it before, is an excellent class and an excellent opportunity. And had she not had Spanish in her middle school, that would have presented a different class selection. So we're not cutting any programs that other districts are doing, and so that's significant to note. The other, but that's
Okay.
that.
Susan, for you, and I only have two more, on page 4 of 55. Line item 45-240. Can you explain to me what judgments against the school district, what that line item is, and why it's the same for this year as it was last year?
That is a judgment that we have been assessed by Atlantic City. It's that we have owned, they claim that we've owed that to them for 2 years now. We've been in litigation over it. If we don't end up having to pay them by the end of this year, which it looks like the court case is going to continue on, the $125 that is there will not be spent.
Fall into surplus?
That will go into surplus. And I do have in the budget where I'm anticipating saving money from this year, that's part of where I anticipate saving that money. If for some reason the litigation ends up being settled in June and I'm required to pay that out, then this $125 that I have budgeted will be needed to make up that surplus that I'm then not going to have going forward, that I'm anticipating in saving from this year's budget.
Okay. My last question is on page 6 of 55. Line item 7200. Can you explain that line item to me?
Yeah, that is
That line item says transfer to cover deficit.
enterprise fund. That has to do with our food service program. Our food service program, the salaries get charged off to Fund 60, and the supplies, it's one of our enterprise funds, and the board does have to put money in to cover that occasionally. We have done so many things that we can try to do to offset the cost of the school lunch. We're required to be in the National School Lunch Program because of the number of free and reduced children that we have in the school. We're not required to participate in breakfast because we don't have yet the percentage that would require us to participate in breakfast. So our food service staff really does not get any benefits, and we keep the cost as low as we can, but the state...
But we lose $60,000 a year in that program.
Well, we're doing better with it to somewhat, that is some of the costs. we're trying to do everything we can to increase our participation. We try to sell some à la carte sales. We're limited to our à la carte sales. We get our food from Ventnor. We were getting it from Mainland. They're giving us a little better price, but there's a very narrow margin, and if...
How much does a kid pay for lunch?
It depends on which school the child is at. I think it's $2.40 or something like that for a lunch. We charge, it's basically the maximum amount that we're allowed to charge by state law. They set a window of what you're allowed to charge, and we do charge the maximum. The children that we have to give free lunch to, we do report that to the state, and they do reimburse us for that. So we do take money in. But almost what we have to pay for selling the lunch is almost what we have to pay Ventnor to provide the lunch. We, you know, we've
I think
done
I understand.
à la carte sales. We've, you know, I've looked into if, you know, we were to go with a company.
It just seems, you know, I understand the nature of the beast. For the most part, kids don't like to buy lunch.
Right, and when you have a small, if you have a
They don't like the
school-
hot dogs.
If you have a school where you have 1,000 students and they're all buying lunch, you can make money. But with any situation, with any business, you're going to have a certain amount of fixed costs. And we have fixed costs with selling lunch. I mean, we pay our lunch ladies basically minimum wage per hour. They're only part-time employees, and we pay the least amount that we can for the food, but we are required. We have been trying all kinds of different things with à la carte sales, but there is a laundry list of things you're not allowed to sell and things you're not allowed to do, that you have to meet certain nutritional requirements. And of course, we do want to make sure that whatever we do offer to our students, it is healthy and good for them.
I'm good. You answered my question. All right, I'm going to
And
do...
we have actually, we have, over the last 4 years, we have been reducing this amount. We will not spend everything that is in that line item, but I have to put enough in to cover it. We have been improving. Even my auditor said last year,
Right.
we're showing an improvement. And when we met with the county, they said the same thing. And they understand that we're small, and there's no way that our kitchens are of the size or that we sell enough food that we can prep the food ourselves. So it's just one of those costs that what we try to do is we try to keep the quality of it up, and we try to keep the cost as low as we can. And we have started several programs. We're doing soup through the school. The people have requested soup for their children. We sent out a survey to try to get people more involved. And I know what it's like, because I have 2 kids. One of them will order lunch 3 days a week, and the other one will not order lunch no matter what you serve.
Okay, thank you. Mike, I don't have any more questions.
As a former school board member, I can't ever remember when the lunch program ended the year on a positive note. We always lost money. I don't remember, I was on the school board for 20-some years, ever coming out positive. It's just the nature of the beast, Maureen. It really is. Anybody else? So we open for public comment?
Absolutely.
Would anybody from the public like to comment?
Sewell, 22 West Drive. Mayor, your attention, your undivided attention, Mayor.
Go, John.
Exhibit A, in the lack of transparency, printing this thing in microprint is to the disadvantage of the public, and I would like going forward that you stipulate a minimum of 12-point print. I believe Ms. Canuso suffered from reading the NJS scores in microprint. I would suggest that you avail yourself of 8.5 by 14 sheets. It allows you to put bigger print, more information. I don't think we should be in the dark. I'm not going to read this unless it's in a readable format. But Mayor, more importantly, as I noted at a previous commission meeting, Steve Marshall has noted that the federal flood insurance premiums in all likelihood will go north of $20,000 a year per home. And in that scenario, I think it is reasonably rational to predict that young families essentially will be priced out of Margate and not simply seniors. And with that in mind, I think it's imperative to contemplate an expedited closing of the William Ross School ASAP. You cannot continue to have senior citizens carrying the school budget as it stands, even though the costs have been contained. It is time to contract and constrict the number of teachers with the declining enrollment. That's imperative. It must be addressed. There's no way of getting around it. And I think it's imperative, Mayor, that you and Commissioner Talby give a mandate to this school board to get with the program and to begin to anticipate dramatically reduced enrollment. There's no other way to circumvent it, Mayor. You're going to have to bite the bullet, face the music, and get with the program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Anyone else?
Hi, Tracy Santoro, 6 Baycrest Court. I didn't actually hear an answer to Commissioner Blumberg's question. One of the questions he's posed was how many current full-time teachers will be part-time in this budget? And we started talking about kindergarten, and we got off track. So I would like to have an answer to that question.
Well, I can tell you that my understanding is that the full-time teachers remain full-time, that there is money in the budget for the current level of full-time teachers that we have.
That's true.
Well, that's what I heard.
What I said is that you asked something in terms, Commissioner, about how many will the same amount of instruction be for, and the same amount
I
all
specifically
students
said,
will
how
have.
many teachers and do we have this year, and will we have the same
That
number
will
of
be let go.
teachers last year? How many teachers do we have now? Will we have the same number next year? Is the money in the budget for them? And Susan said, yes, it is. I assume then
Same
that we're not
amount.
letting go any teachers.
We're getting caught up between full-time and part-time.
Yes.
That's the question you're not
Yes.
answering.
First of all, this is a budget meeting. This is not a staffing meeting.
Money?
I
Okay, this
understand
is a
that, but
budget
the
meeting.
money's
The
not in
staff
there.
list is not due according to state guidelines and arranged until April or maybe even the first meeting in May. So that's when the final actual staff has to be notified as to what teachers that are on the books in May of 2013 will be teaching in September of 2014. So that conclusive decision has not been made, nor is the district able to make that specific decision at this time until we have further information from our child study team and from our principals.
But again, if I'm approving a budget that has $1 million for teachers, it must be predicated upon some quantity of teachers. And I was told that that budget that I'm going to approve is predicated upon the same number of teachers next year as we have this year. What didn't I get? So if you guys decide to let go a teacher, you owe me $120,000, and I'm coming to ask for it.
Correct, and there will be a surplus in the budget for next year, but
Well,
Susan
see,
can
now
talk-
that's garbage.
Susan can
That's
talk
not
to
what
that.
the public wants to hear. That's not what the kids, that's not what the parents of the kids want to hear.
Well, that's state guidelines, Commissioner. We can't, this is the Board of School Estimates meeting. You can review the budget, you can review the line items, and you can question specifically on it. The superintendent in the school district is under no requirement under statute or law, or nor are we able to give you a list of teachers, nor are we able to violate the trust and executive content of those specific
I'm
teachers.
okay with that,
So if you have a
JB,
specific
but-
question, ask it regards to this budget.
It
Thank
was
you.
related to the finances as it relates to putting together the budget. When you put together a budget, if you are budgeting for 10 teachers, you budget X amount of dollars. If you're budgeting for 9 teachers, you budget X amount of dollars. My question was legitimate, and I believe that it was answered, you budgeted for the same number of teachers next year as that you have this year. That's all I'm saying. Now,
First of all, the question's not legitimate, but if Susan can offer any
that's your
insight to help
opinion.
you understand it correct, then it's an accurate one.
what am I? What am I missing?
I don't know.
What am I missing?
I'd say the key
Have I
thing
said
there is the
anything
same amount of
inaccurate?
instructional time all students in the district will have. The same amount of instructional time.
I'm sorry, I don't know that I can help answer your question then.
Okay, the question is that obviously there's positions that are now budgeted in this budget part-time. We're trying to get to the bottom of that because they're going to be covering instructional time with full-time teachers that aren't currently doing that job. So there are going to be people who are going to be taken from full-time to part-time, and that has to somehow be in this budget.
Tracy, can I...
Just in general.
I was
just gonna-
No student instructional time is being reduced. And whether the teachers are full-time or part-time, the district doesn't have the information from the principals to answer that question at a budget hearing. And in addition, if a specific teacher has a question, there's guidelines and law that dictates that too, where the teachers know the procedure and they're free to come and
Can you
ask the board and
guarantee
proceed
that the
accordingly.
programs aren't going to be compromised
All right.
by taking these full-time positions to
Tracy,
part-time?
can I just add, purpose of a Board of School Estimates is to approve the finances, not to administer the schools or manage the schools. That's up to the Board of Education. We're here today to either approve or disapprove the numbers that are here on this.
And Mike, I agree, but we have a responsibility to the public. If we're giving them in excess of $10 million because we're led to believe that we have 100 teachers, then you know what? Next year, we should have 100 teachers. We're paying them for it. And if we don't, then yes, I guess I agree with Susan that, you know, she's going to refund us our money. And the taxpayers will then see that benefit.
I just wanted to...
And then the parents can fight the fight at the school board meeting. So, I mean, I'm not arguing, and JB has no need or reason to attack me. It's a simple matter of finances.
There's no attack, Commissioner. It's merely a stating of the
I
procedure.
felt like
There's-
I was attacked.
Oh, well, you know, I can't help you for your feelings, but, you know, there's
I don't
administrative and
think
statutory...
it's been determined yet. That's what they're telling me. It's
I
April.
understand. The question was posed, and
Okay.
it was an
Thank you.
answer I was interested in. And also, I just want to put on the record that there's hundreds of parents in Margate who have no interest in you closing a school and expediting any sort of closing based on what may or may not come to fruition. So.
Thank you for that.
I just wanted to say, so everyone is clear, when I work with Dr. DeFranco and the Budget Committee and we build the budget, I give them the best information I can quantitatively to try to predict what certain costs will be. We are not allowed to go in the red. We're not allowed to have a negative. If we're going to err in one side of a budget, we need to make sure that we have the funds to cover what we're going to need. It's not, the federal government can go in the red. We can't do that. So just because we budget for items, sometimes we plan things, and we do try to follow the budget as closely as we need to, doesn't necessarily mean that we spend every dime that we budget for. Sometimes things can come up. You have to understand, this is March. This budget isn't even going to go into effect until July. If we can find a better way to do something or save some money, we won't spend the money. That money goes right back into fund balance, which this year we put up well over $700,000 of fund balance into the budget to help defer the cost of taxes to the citizens. Just because we budget for something, every time a purchase order comes across my desk, I scrutinize that purchase order and whether I'm going to pay for it. Just because we have budgeted for 100 teachers does not mean we're going to pay for 100 teachers. Just because I have budgeted $30,000 for textbooks doesn't mean that the curriculum committee is going to come to me and want to spend $30,000 on textbooks. So, yes, things should be in a budget to make a budget work. Is it possible to find money in areas for different items? Of course it is. That's why there's a thing called a budget transfer. Certain items, when you transfer them, depending on what accounts you're taking them to and from, you need to have executive county approval to do so. So I don't take transfers lightly, but we do have to make transfers at times. So I don't know if that answers the question. The budget is a plan, and you try to follow that plan as best you can, but that doesn't always mean that you spend every dime in the plan. I think if you look at any of our line items as they're budgeted and you look at how they've come out, there's usually always some kind of a balance, or I've had to transfer money to cover things in prior years. I try to come as close as I can. Been doing this now for 21 years. I know just how you feel, Mrs. Simons, but it's my turn.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to make that clear.
We have people in the public who want to speak. Thank you. Holly? Could you speak into the microphone, Holly, please?
Dr. DeFranco, and you said that there are currently now 11 paraprofessionals. Okay, as being a paraprofessional, there are 14 of us. So I'm just wondering, there's only 11 of us right now.
I probably erred with, I know we gave out, I guess it was four letters at the time when we weren't sure. That would make up probably for the difference. So, excuse me, Holly.
We're only
Yes.
budgeting for 11
If
paraprofessionals.
we're
next year.
budgeting for all the paraprofessionals except for 1.5 right now.
Okay, because you
Yes.
said 11 aides now, minus 1.5 less than what we have now.
But
We have
keep-
14 now.
Keep in mind, there's aides and then there's classroom aides. So, I don't
But
know,
we're all paraprofessionals, weren't we all
What?
considered paraprofessionals?
classroom aides, and then there's some that are one-on-one based on expertise.
Right.
So, I don't have those figures in front of you.
11, and I listed all of us, and there's 14 of us. That was my only...
There's 14 and a half.
14 and a half. I heard her say 11, so that's where I'm asking.
Yes, and I'm not sure if those 11 may be the aides and how many are the classroom aides. But they're two distinct roles.
All right, thank you.
There's 9 101, 1 basic skills, 1 preschool, and 3.5 assigned a resource room.
All right.
He asked the question on aides.
Anyone else?
We're split hairs.
Art Cortilli, 114 North Lancaster Avenue. In the budget, we probably have something accounting for the fact that we no longer have to support the Union Avenue School. I'm sure that's a big cost. But I was wondering about the solar panels. You used to get a nice chunk of change from that, like maybe $100,000 or something every year, which is a large sum. It seems that you've lost that also, or do you still somehow get that money back? I don't know how that might work, because it belongs to the city now.
Sue, you want to?
The solar panels on Union Avenue School will be transferred to the city, so they will maintain those.
So the city will get the 100,000 back, or?
Well, Union Avenue
Whatever
School
it is, we
usually,
will get it back. We just signed those papers
Okay, so it won't be
today.
the school board, so you don't have that, so you take a loss in your budget for that, even though you gain by not
Right.
having to support this building?
Correct.
the solar panels on the 3 buildings over the years have generated anywhere between 500 and 600 solar credits, depending on the year, the sun, whatever. They've ranged in sales price from They started out at $165 a piece. There was one year I sold them for like $365 a piece, so we had so much money. We ended up putting some towards our fund balance that year because the state requires that you only keep a 2% fund balance. This year, we got $112.50 for SREC credit, which was good for this year. The market on SREC...
How much money was that?
Well, we already sold like $35,000 worth of them because I sold what I had to date was $239, but I'm anticipating being able to come up with anywhere between $5 and $550. And the contract says that they'll take whatever I have up to $5 and $550. Of course, after February 28th, I won't get the credits from Union Avenue, but I kind of anticipated that in. So, you know, we will get some money for the next year in the upcoming budget for solar panel, you know, credits of money coming in. I definitely do not have budgeted what I did in the last year. And this year, I'm not going to get what I budgeted as income coming in from them, because when back in February of last year, when I was working out what the budget was, I was estimating each one of them at like $150, because that's what they had dropped down to there. Well, now they're selling at $112. I do understand that the state has put in regulations that they have to, the utility companies do have to generate more power or purchase more alternative power, but I don't think that's going to help the cost of the panels for probably another 2 years from now, before that demand starts to pull again. But, I mean, they have been a great source of income for the school, and we have derived a lot of money from them.
All right, thank you.
And just,
Thank you.
Mark,
Thank you.
just so you know, what Susan had in the budget for this year was estimated at $105,000, and what she's anticipating for next year is $41,000. So you see the difference.
Okay, wow, that's a big drop.
Yeah.
No, that just means that the city is going to see, hopefully, 70,000, the other 70,000.
Yeah, but I'm saying this is for the
Big
school
drop.
board
Wouldn't
estimate.
count on it.
Correct.
The school board estimate are taking a hit of 60,000. Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Sharon Simon, 424 North Thurlow Avenue. I think the school board does an amazing job of keeping in mind the taxpayers and how much money is being spent within the school district. I think that what I'm hearing from other people, what I myself have a concern about, is how those dollars are allocated in the school. In other words, you know, you have your building costs and all those. But we see that less and less costs are going into the classroom, but with staff and programs that we may have had before the year that we had the cuts, spending cuts and the closing the school and all that. There were significant reasons why we had to cut things. There are a lot of programs we had before that, a lot of library programs where we weren't able to have because we had to cut down on library staff. Brown bag book lunch, other programs, the Chinese program, those programs. So I think what the question is, or what people want to know, is we send a lot of people, 18 people to other schools. How much savings is that? What does it cost, like 20,000, 21? How much does it cost now to send someone to Atlantic City High School?
$19,000.
19,000?
$19,800.
Okay.
$31,932 if they're special ed.
Okay. And so you multiply that by 18.
We're not sending any less. That was, we're not sending any less students to Atlantic City High School. We're sending more. We're sending more, so that
Than
number is...
last year?
Yes.
Okay, but
yes.
that's not my question. Okay, before Ocean City had a choice school, and before Mainland, we've sent more kids to Atlantic City High School?
That's not correct. No, that's
not
not
true.
true. As I stated before, Holy Spirit is down
Right.
64 to 20.
Okay.
We're up in the same two-year period from 119 to 127.
Okay.
So, pardon me, that's combined ACIT and ACHS, but it's still 123, State to Atlantic City High School. No, we're up. If you look specifically where our children have gone, yes, 18 went to Ocean City, 20 went to Holy Spirit, 1 went to Atlantic Christian, 3 went to Alma, and 14 went to the prep. But that's still, the number going to AC is equal to, or it's more than it's been since 2009.
And is that because we have increased enrollment, or?
It's just more families are continuing or choosing Atlantic City High School. The numbers speak for themselves.
Okay, but there are other things, and so, I guess, and the other thing is, it's frustrating as a taxpayer to sit here, is whether it's in the school budget or it's the city, whether who's ever paying for Union Avenue, it's the same dollars to us. So, I appreciate one's the school board and one's the city, but just understand, for us, it's the same amount of money. It's either the city paying for it or the school paying for it. And also, my question is this, and this is purely financial, okay? In this budget, and I think this is what's been asked, but it has not been answered, okay? This budget is based on a number of full-time teachers and a number of part-time teachers, okay? So those numbers, is that the same number? Not that you may need them or don't need them. Is this budget that you put in, is this budget we're in now, this school year, is it the same number of full-time and the same number of part-time? So in other words, if we had 50 full-time this year and 20 part-time, does this budget have 50 full-time and 20 part-time? I'm not sure why you're staring at me.
I'm just listening, waiting for you to finish.
I'm finished.
The budget has the same number of instructional time.
No, that's not what I'm asking.
That's what I'm
Full-time
saying.
teachers.
Same number of instructional time for the students next
I'm not asking
year.
about instructional time, I'm asking about staff costs. Do you have the same number?
As JB mentioned to you.
I just want the question answered. Do you
The
have the same
question
number?
that I can answer to you
don't have-
is that our students will have
No,
the
no.
same number of instructional time this year and next year.
It's math, okay? When you did the budget, somebody, and we know budgets, you got your finance minister here, okay? We don't need preaching on budgets and transfers. It's very simple. It's okay if they're less, just tell us. Do you have the same number of full-time and part-time teachers? Maybe you don't need them. Maybe you have less because you have less students. That's fine. We're just asking a question. Is it the same number of full-time and part-time?
Sharon?
Okay, you're not going to answer the question, obviously. That's fine.
Well,
Okay?
first of all, the question's compound and complex.
Excuse me?
The question's compound and complex.
No, it isn't.
How
It's a
about if I
number.
make it easy? Does the budget that we're going to approve support the same number of full-time and part-time
Now, you need to
teachers?
break up the question probably.
No,
to
no, no,
full and
what-
part-time.
that's a yes or no.
That's why it's compound.
It's not compound, you're making it compound.
Could that question that I just asked not be answered with yes or no?
Say it again.
Does the budget support, the budget that we are about to approve, support the same number of full-time and part-time teachers?
The answer is yes, as Susan explained.
That's
It would-
fine. That's
all we want to
so
know,
that's
yes.
It would support.
It would
the same
support.
number
We're
of
not, and
full-time.
Sharon,
It doesn't in any manner guarantee or...
and nobody's
bind
asking for that
the board
guarantee.
to that.
Nobody's asking for
Is
that.
it in the staff line?
All right, we all
Is it-
agreed.
Commissioner, did I
Wait a
answer?
minute.
Is it-
Absolutely.
Is it
We've all
the staff
agreed that your
line?
question is answered.
Is it in the staff
that-
line?
that-
I mean, yeah, you can transfer money, but
turn her
it's
off.
in the staff line.
I think
Okay,
I
don't
answered
turn
the
off the mic. That's not necessary. My
think?
final question is,
You're the queen of them.
excuse me? Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Continue.
Thank
I won't
you.
shut you off.
Thank you.
Yeah.
A 5-year contract was given to the superintendent. I have asked numerous times why, instead of a 3-year contract. Every other district, nobody else in this area, and nobody else in other areas, as far as I know, are giving a 5-year contract. The question I asked is why, and the answer I've gotten is twofold, okay? The answer is she's doing a good job, which is great. You can do a good job in 3 years, and then you can continue to do a good job for another 3 years. And the second answer I've got is there is a 5-year plan. You had a shared services committee The board had a 3-year plan in year 3, which was this year, to talk about shared superintendent. I don't believe we should have a shared superintendent. I like having our own superintendent, but we do not need a full-time superintendent. Unless you can tell me that you're going to keep full-time special needs teachers, because even though you may say we only need a part-timer, it's not going to hurt a special needs child or a big class to have an aide in there for full-time instead of part-time. So what's frustrating and what I don't understand is we have a good budget and we have dollars. And if we're going to spend them in the classroom. Spend them for special needs. I don't need the answer to the superintendent because there is no good financial answer.
I can answer your questions if that's okay with Mr. Mayor. First, in part, the superintendent's contract was, I'm just looking at the June 11, 2012 letter from the Office of the Executive County Superintendent that pursuant to the New Jersey Administrative Code.
It's legal, that's not what I'm asking.
And the CUSAC performance review. Margate's performance review satisfied CUSAC indicators in all DPR areas. The commissioner previously notified us that we have been designated as a high-performing district. That's between 80 and 20% in every single category, which is the highest rating you can get. That's good for the next 3 years. The superintendent established that CUSAC rating for us, implemented it for us, and that, not alone, but in part, is specifically why she was rehired, for her outstanding
requires a 5-year?
performance to our students and her outstanding respect to
But why commit the taxpayers to 5 years? That doesn't answer the question.
That's to answer that question. The second question regarding funds, just by way of background, just if I may briefly, the special education costs in this district back in 2008.
Be brief, please. We have to
Yeah, be brief.
The two special education costs in this district in 2008 were $934,000. In this year's proposed budget, we're spending $1.5 million, over $1.5 million in special education. So to criticize this superintendent for diverting any funds from special education is absolutely just without merit, because in fact, under this superintendent, special education resources were dedicated at a level never seen before in this district, and every student was given the utmost attention and financial support possible by our taxpayers as administrated through this board.
Thank you. We're going to close public comment. We have for presentation, possible adoption.
Well, I should make the motion that we close public comment?
Please do.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it. Sue, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Bloomberg?
Yes.
Mr. Sless?
Yes.
Mrs. Canuso?
Yes.
Mayor Becker?
Yes. Do you have the resolution, Sue?
Yes, I do. Want me to read it?
Mike,
Would you like to read it?
Sue, no, just before we go to resolution and vote, I just want to get clear on one thing. Because there was a lot of discussion back and forth, and I just want to make sure that I understand that if the school board and the superintendent decide that they're going to cut aides or move teachers to part-time, that the public will not be told that the reason that we did this was because there was no money in the budget, that the city didn't give us the money. Is that clear? Am I clear?
I think that's very clear.
That's fine. Okay.
Yes.
I just wanted to get that clear.
Sue?
Do you want me to read the
I would
resolution?
like you to, very much.
Let's see, to the Board of Commissioners and the Board of Education of Margate County of Atlantic, City of New Jersey, this is to certify that at a meeting of the Board of School Estimate held in the Commission Chamber in the Margate City Hall at 9001 Winchester Avenue on March 21st, the following resolution was adopted. Whereas the Board of Education has submitted its budget and has estimated the sum of $10,511,408 to be necessary for the operation of the public schools of Margate City, New Jersey for the school year beginning July 1st, 2013, exclusive of state, county, federal, or other funds, be it resolved, we hereby fix and determine the amount to be raised as followed for general funds. $10,511,408. Be it further resolved that the Secretary is hereby instructed to prepare 2 certificates of this action, one to be delivered to the Board of Education and the other to the Board of Commissioners.
I will make a motion that we adopt that resolution.
Second.
Commissioner Bloomberg?
Yes.
Mr. Sless?
Yes.
Mrs. Canuso?
Yes.
Mayor Becker?
I will happily, and I want to congratulate you. The operating budget is down $470,000, which is very big. There's no increase in tax levy. Actually, we're down $25,000. I thank you for your service, and I vote yes. We can...
We adjourn? Is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion that we adjourn.
And then I'll...
Second.
Okay, and I'm going to pass their certificate.
I just want, did we call the other members of the board? Don't you? And Okay, I didn't hear. I'm sorry.
Okay. Now,
I make a motion we
there's
adjourn.
another meeting here very shortly, so can we get these things
Sign
signed?
these things quickly, and then we're...
Okay, fine.
Very good, Mayor.
I think it went well.
That went well.
It's the same thing every year. Yes, thank you.